At the Bois de Boulogne, ennui and hunger attacked me at once, two enemies who rarely accompany each other, and who are yet leagued against me, a sort of Carlo-Republican alliance. I then recollected you gave a breakfast this morning, and here I am. I am hungry, feed me, I am bored, amuse me. It is my duty as your host, returned Albert, ringing the bell, while Lucien turned over, with his gold-mounted cane, the papers that lay on the table. Germain, a glass of sherry and a biscuit. In the meantime, my dear Lucien, here are cigars, contraband, of course, try them, and persuade the minister to sell us such instead of poisoning us with cabbage leaves. Peste, I will do nothing of the kind. The moment they come from government you would find them execrable. Besides, that does not concern the home but the financial department. Address yourself to M. Humanen, section of the indirect contributions, Corridor A, number 26. On my word, said Albert, you astonish me by the extent of your knowledge. Take a cigar. Really, my dear Albert, replied Lucien, lighting a manila at a rose-colored taper that burnt in a beautifully enameled stand, how happy you are to have nothing to do. You do not know your own good fortune. And what would you do, my dear diplomatist, replied Mercer, with a slight degree of irony in his voice, if you did nothing? What? Private secretary to a minister, plunged at once into European cabals and Parisian intrigues, having kings, and, better still, queens, to protect, parties to unite, elections to direct, making more use of your cabinet with your pen and your telegraph than Napoleon did of his battlefields with his sword and his victories, possessing 25,000 francs a year, besides your place, a horse, for which Chateau Renaud offered you 400 louis, and which you would not part with, a tailor who never disappoints you, with the opera, the jockey club, and other diversions. Can you not amuse yourself? Well, I will amuse you. How? By introducing to you a new acquaintance. A man or a woman? A man. I know so many men already. But you do not know this man? Where does he come from? The end of the world? Farther still, perhaps. The deuce. I hope he does not bring our breakfast with him. Oh, no, our breakfast comes from my father's kitchen. Are you hungry? Humiliating as such a confession is, I am. But I dined at M. de Villefort's, and lawyers always give you very bad dinners. You would think they felt some remorse. Did you ever remark that? Ah, depreciate other persons' dinners, you ministers give such splendid ones. Yes, but we do not invite people of fashion. If we were not forced to entertain a parcel of country boobies because they think and vote with us, we should never dream of dining at home, I assure you. Well, take another glass of sherry and another biscuit. Willingly. Your Spanish wine is excellent. You see, we were quite right to pacify that country. Yes, but Don Carlos? Well, Don Carlos will drink Bordeaux, and in 10 years we will marry his son to the little queen. You will then obtain the golden fleece, if you are still in the ministry. I think, Albert, you have adopted the system of feeding me on smoke this morning. Well, you must allow it is the best thing for the stomach, but I hear Beecham in the next room, you can dispute together, and that will pass away the time. About what? About the papers. My dear friend, said Lucien with an air of sovereign contempt, do I ever read the papers? Then you will dispute the more. M. Beecham, announced the servant. Come in, said Albert, rising and advancing to meet the young man. Here is Debray, who detests you without reading you, so he says. He is quite right, returned Boche, for I criticize him without knowing what he does. Good day, Commander. Ah, you know that already, said the private secretary, smiling and shaking hands with him. Pardieu? And what do they say of it in the world? In which world? We have so many worlds in the year of grace 1838. In the entire political world, of which you are one of the leaders. They say that it is quite fair, and that sowing so much red, you ought to reap a little blue. Come, that is not bad, said Lucien. Why do you not join our party, my dear Beecham? With your talents you would make your fortune in 3 or 4 years. I only await one thing before following your advice, that is, a minister who will hold office for 6 months. My dear Albert, one word, for I must give poor Lucien a respite. Do we breakfast or dine? I must go to the chamber, for our life is not an idle one. You only breakfast, I await 2 persons, and the instant they arrive we shall sit down to table. Chapter 40. The Breakfast. And what sort of persons do you expect to breakfast? Said Beecham. A gentleman, and a diplomatist. Then we shall have to wait 2 hours for the gentleman, and 3 for the diplomatist. I shall come back to dessert, keep me some strawberries, coffee, and cigars.